Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Collection, and today we're getting into skateboarding. That's right, skateboarding. In the 80s, skateboarding became very popular, mainly because of stars like Tony Hawk emerging, and then Hollywood took notice. And what happened then? Skateboard movies. Yeah, Skateboard the movie. Not that great. But then, in the 80s, it started to get a little bit better. And the first one we're going to talk about stars a good friend of mine, Mr. Robert Rusler, as Hook, opposite Josh Brolin, and that film was Thrashin.
Thrashin', it's not a kid's game anymore.
There was a revival screening in LA, and I went with Rusler, and it was really cool because all the old Daggers were there. The Daggers were the name of the gang that he was the head of. The Alva team were the bad boys of skating. I used to work at the Alva skateboard factory in the late 80s, early 90s in San Juan Capistrano. And I have to admit, I was a little bit proud working for Alva. Even though we weren't winning contests, we definitely were the coolest skate crew. I mean, hey, Peralta was the shit back in the day, let's face it. They had all the best skaters, but you know, you wanted to get down and dirty, punk rock, the Alva boys, for sure. At this revival screening, a lot of those Alva guys were there. Tony Alva was there. Dave Duncan, who used to work in the office at the skateboard factory I worked at. We used to go skating at lunch all the time. The Haunted Hole in San Juan Capistrano, that was like the hot spot. It was an empty pool in an old burned down mansion on a hill in San Juan. We used to skate there all the time. Those were good times. That night, they'd had a limited edition deck that I believe Dave Duncan or Tony Alva had made. I don't remember who had them made, but he gave them to all the guys, and I was fortunate enough to get one. I had everybody autograph it. And here it is right here. How cool is that? There's my boy Dave Duncan right there, Eddie Radigi, and right here you can see Robert Rusler signed it. Hook, V13, Robert Rusler. Interesting story about that night is I didn't know Christian Hosoi. I'd never met him before. I was a huge fan. I mean, dude, come on, the Christ Air. Talk about big air. I went to a lot of skating tournaments back in the day. That dude was a marvel to watch. The vert, that guy would just fly. So I remember we're at the party and Robert's talking to Christian, and Christian says he needs a ride home. And he goes, well, Sean lives in Orange County. He could drop you off. Next thing I know, I'm driving Christian Hosoi, just me and him. It was a trip. It was kind of a surreal moment. I've never seen him again since that day, but it was a cool little story I can tell and share with you. This guy says, hey, do you mind if I get a picture with you and Rusler? Do you want me in it? And he's like, oh yeah. He goes, I'm a huge Horizontal Grounds fan. And I'm like, oh wow, awesome. So we take the picture and I'm talking to the guy and he looked familiar to me, but I didn't know who he was. And he said, yeah, I'm in a band. Oh, what band? And he said, Sam Hain. And I'm like, what? Holy shit. It was London May, the drummer of Sam Hain. Dude, I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a huge Sam Hain fan. Anyway, we've been really good friends ever since, and it was just kind of a crazy night, you know. Another big skating film in the 80s was a little film starring Christian Slater called Gleaming the Cube.
Gleaming the Cube.
All the big stars in it. I mean, Tony Hawk, Rodney Mullen, Mike McGill, Nadas. They were all in that movie. So it was kind of like a who's who of the big names in skating at the time. Christian Slater wasn't a skater. Slater, skater, I know it rhymes, but he wasn't. And he had to learn how to skate to do the film, but most of his skating was done by Mike McGill and Rodney Mullen. And I doubt it was any coincidence that the skateboard Christian used in the movie was a Mike McGill Powell Peralta board. And as a matter of fact, I got it. Here it is. I don't know how many were made for the film, but this is one of Christian Slater's skateboards, complete, from Gleaming the Cube. Check that out. It is a thing of beauty. And you might notice one of the front wheels, see the front wheel there? This wheel is really worn down compared to this one. So I don't know what they were doing with this deck. But it's only like that on that one wheel, really. It's funny how they put the sticker over McGill's name. It was a Powell Peralta sticker, but with the Powell Peralta sticker over the McGill name, you can barely make out what either of them say. I'm assuming that was intentional. I love the 80s decks. I love the old vintage decks. I obviously used to skate on Alva, many Alva decks. My deck of choice back in the day was the Jim Murphy Murph model deck. That's the one I still have to this day. I still have it. And whenever I break out a board, that's the one I'm riding on.